create a reflection, just merging them together with the thumb, just to create a bit more flatter. So by using the side of my thumb I can actually get a little bit more shadowing effect in there. Same with this purple, I'm using the same colour so I don't need to wipe my hands on this. In fact sometimes it's better to put a lighter purple in with that darker purple. And then in between those clouds, and I'll move it into that blue as well. So it'll fade out into the blue area. So I can push that colour now slightly. I've still got a little bit, it's gone blue now, but I still had a bit of purple. And sometimes if I only want to put a little bit on, I'll put it on my thumb like that, because it's, you can see how that looks. It's like, it is like lipstick. It's that soft, and I can now use that for just putting a little bit in there if I want, just to add a bit of colour in there. Now I've got to come down to the worst bit I always hate. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that purple because I want to soften this corner. It's not looking as good as I'd like it to look at the minute, so I'm going to try and soften it and blend it so it's more even. I don't want it to be too, I don't want it to suddenly stop in a line, so what I'm trying to do is just blend it together so it's a natural colour change between the blues and the purple now. There's a bit of purple mixed in there. There's that other mid-blue. And I'm a bit happier about that now, because that's got more like a shadow effect in the water. It's a lot softer, and when I finish this picture I sometimes put little lily pads in there as well, which I can see some areas there that could have lily pads in there. It just makes it a little bit more interesting down this corner. So I'll just wipe that bit of cloud in as well there. Flatten those colours off in the distance. Bring it down there. I'll just flatten these white pools off a little bit because I don't want them to be quite strong yet. They're just to tell me where to put grasses in front of it and behind it. Okay, so I can work on the brown now, the second stage of the brown, before you have your break. And then we'll be ready for the third stage, which is the stage before the final stage, which is using the pencils. So I can see my pale colours here, but I want to reinstate a little bit of dark colour. So I'm just going to put a very little bit of dark colour between those trees. And that'll create my shadows again. So I'm basically doing what I did before. I'm putting my shadows back in a little bit stronger, because there's two lots of colour now going on top of each other, so I'm starting to build that colour up again. Doing exactly what I did before, perhaps not as much as I did, so I've blended it all in, so just put a little bit more colour back in. I'm going to leave some of that dark shadowy colour that I put in, where it was almost black. I can leave that now and I can work round that. There's quite a dark shadow area there which I can work round, which I didn't have before. And I can work that round, so I can leave that real dark. And as I come to the water's edge, I can leave quite a lot of that dark shadowy area in there. And then coming around here, I can see there's gaps where I can put a little bit of the brown back in. Same on this side. I can leave some of those dark shadow areas now that I put in with the dark, very, very dark brown. And I can bring some of this brown now into here, because I haven't used any brown in here at all. So now as I come down, where this dark brown is, I'll start to actually create some more shape here with the grasses. So I'm starting to create a little bit of shape now in the foreground, because I can get away with the distance just being lines, but in the foreground here I've got to create, check I'm doing it right. I've got to create the grasses now, the grass effect, as I come down the front there, so I'll just work those in a little bit. Just work those back. And then the other colour I use, which is that nice orangey colour, I'll just put some blasts of light in again, in between this brown I've just used. again, where the water touches the grasses there, there'll be a lighter colour because it will reflect off that water onto the tops of the grasses. So I'll put a little bit of orange in there. And then as I come forward, I'll just do a little bit now on this. I'll do this in clumps rather than in a line. So I'm just doing this. This is where the light is going to just catch the tops of some of these grasses, not the whole thing. It's just going to be a little bit of light. And then as I come forward, I'll do a little bit in there, not much. Just a little bit, just to spark it up a little bit there. Down in this corner, start to create some grass shapes now with this pastel, because I've got more detail in the corner here, so just create some shapes in lines, just start to tap some of those shapes in. And then merge these colours together again. Exactly what I did before. Trying to work around these little pools of water now because I've got to allow for them. So I'll just merge these colours together again. And as I come further down, I might have to straighten this up at half time a little bit because I'm working sideways on. Sorry if I'm blocking anybody's view, but I need to just correct it. At the minute it's a little bit going downhill. You can correct it. So I'm actually rubbing all these light grasses in now. It's not my final detail, so I just want to know where those grasses are and what size they are, so that's why I put them in there. And again at the top, quite small, merge them all in, just above that water there, and then just below the water so I can still see it. And then down underneath, and then as I come down this side again, just start to merge these colours in together. And then just bring some of that lighter colour in for now. A lot of the foreground will be done with pencils when I get down to that point. Yeah. Just want to put some shadowing back in now because I've lost some of my shadowing and I want to put some impact back in the picture, so I'm just going to reinstate some of the shadow, and I'm going to do that in various places. Just underneath where it meets here, I'll do it at the base of the grasses, obviously because that's where the darkest points are. So I'll reinstate some of these shadows now, to create a bit more depth to my picture. And as I go into the distance, I do less, a little bit less, a little bit less. Put some in there. Starting to use this, even though I'm using the pastel, very wide pastel, I'm still starting to try and draw with the pastel. And sometimes you'll hear me just tap the top of it, and that's just to get a little bit of a pastel on there. Okay, nearly there. Just put a little bit of shadow around there. And then in this corner again, where the darkest shades are going to be, I'm going to put some more in there. Leave some of that brown showing through that I've just done. And then in the middle ground there as well. Bring it round. And just finally on that, just squash that in again. So I can see it a lot better now. Some of it I might even leave if it's got a nice, if it looks like a bunch of grasses, I'll leave it, I won't squash it down. But generally, when it goes into the distance, I tend to squash it right down in the distance to get that sense of perspective. So I'll generally make that a bit more impressionist style in the distance, and then as I come forward, just put a little bit more detail in. And as I work down here, and then when I come to this corner again, just leave some of those that brown showing through, and I'll start to build up more detail in the grasses to this corner. Like that. Okay. You want it, right?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Paul. That's
Okay.
great, that.
Yeah.
Can I just